freeze it. He says, Kay, and leave Friday night, right? Question mark. She says, I'll call you in a few and we'll talk. Please call them back. He says, Kay, when you listen to all these texts, not only was she manipulating her husband, she's manipulating Mike Stanley. You'll see how she's having Mike Stanley do all her dirty work, just like she's getting the hitman to do her dirty work to kill her husband. She then says, text me after you talk to them. After you talk to them, you can give them banking account information and how long it takes because he's going to move the money. He says, Kay, I'll call now. She says, Kay, make sure they look him up. He says, I will push one of two P's in name. And she said, 2P Dippolito, and she spells Dippilito, so for Mike's last name. He says, Kay, thanks. She says, reference number 25004. He says, I just got a fucking idiot operator who said, we don't deal with that stuff. We need to figure out what department to get transferred to. I will have to try again. She says, call back and see if you can get someone else, please. He says, I am. She says, Kay, text me after. I really want them to freeze that. It's not fair. He texts back, online I found a division enforcement director handling the civil case media. I should call him. He says, he is the division enforcement attorney that was on the case. She says, are you sure? Sounds risky. They may be friends with his copy buddy. He says, doubt it, but maybe. Let try again and look some more. Still on, now we're on July 22nd, so now we're another day. She texts, hey baby, what's the earliest you can make the call? I want to prep you before you talk to him. She says, are you there, baby? He says, hey, sorry, was in a meeting. She says, call me after you get out. She says, call my other phone with the spoof. He wants to drop the paper. Tell me tomorrow, TOMM. Call now, please, with the spoof 561 number. He says, call your 305 or 561. She says, need someone professional to meet me and Mike, meaning Mike Dippolito, at the Miami courthouse at 2 and act like a legal secretary and take a paper from us. So what they're doing at this point is the scheme that they've planned is she told Mike Dippolito that she can get him off of probation and put him on administrative probation. That she knows an attorney who's friends with the judge, and he's going to go do a secret deal with the judge, and they're just going to have to provide this paper, and they're going to provide it to the judge, and the judge, and this attorney's going to say, the judge signed off on you, you don't have to go to probation anymore. And then when he doesn't go to probation anymore, probation violates him because he didn't show up like he's supposed to show up every month, and Mike goes away to prison for a long time, and she steals all his stuff. So that's the scheme that's going on. So she says, they just need to say that are taking it to the attorney, and thanks for meeting us. They were in depositions all day. Then she says, I'll pay them $500. And then there's a text in here, but it's from a different number. It's to her. It says, what lawyer are they representing and what happens to the papers after? Are they taking to anybody besides you and Mike? And then, because remember we could do a spoof call from a 561 number, so that's the 561 number that's going on now. So now with 305, it's back to her again. She says, love you, sexy. Then she says, me and Mike are giving them papers. They can trash it later. Yeah, real important paper. He then does the sideways smiley face, and he says, love you too, babe. She says, let me know if you have someone that looks professional. They just need to meet us in front of the Miami courthouse and take a paper from us. And say they will make sure the attorney gets it, and sorry for the inconvenience. That's it. And then he's, with a spoof number, he's saying, what time again? And she says, 2 or 2:30. So this is still July 22nd. She says, he thinks we're handing it to an attorney's legal secretary, meaning Mike Dippolito thinks that. I'll give you the money, then you can put it in their account when they meet us. He says, Kay, I got a guy, give me all the details, including address, and what is the lawyer's name? She says, does he look professional? He says, yes, he will. She says, Kay, he just has to be at the courthouse at 2 and introduce himself as a paralegal and apologize for the inconvenience of meeting at courthouse. But he's had court cases all day. It's never ending in Miami, and Richard will submit everything and take the paper and thank us. So they're pretending that the lawyer is Richard. The lawyer is really Mike Stanley. He's pretending to be the lawyer. She then says, that's it. My eyes are going on me. All right, so from his spoof call again, he says, this guy is available at 10 to talk on the phone. He will be busy after that. Address. She then says, now we're on July 23rd. So because remember, so this was later in the afternoon, and they go to 10 o'clock in the morning tomorrow, but it starts at 8:01. She says, text me his number. He responds back, 255-0370, Sergio. She says, 73 West Flagler Street, Miami, Florida, 33130. The phone number is 305-527-1155. Please make sure you're there before 2. Thanks. So that's her texting Sergio. So now you can see, you'll see the number switch. So he tells her it's Sergio. She then texts Sergio the information of where to meet, and it goes further. So now this is Sergio texting her. At the moment that I meet, should I call you by your name, like asking if you are the parent that I'm looking for, person that I'm looking for? So my eyes are going. Remind me your name. And she says, yes, Dalia and Mike. He says, okay. She says to Sergio, sounds good, thank you. Whatever questions you have, feel free to text me. Sergio texts back, please be on time, thanks. She texts Sergio, please be on time. He says, okay. She then texts, now she's back to Mike Stanley. I need you to spoof the call and tell him that he needs to meet your paralegal at 2:30 at the courthouse, and that since your vacation, you live. She then says, at the courthouse, your paralegal's name is Sergio if he asks, and you apologize for the inconvenience, but you're filing it tomorrow and need to revise the documents before, and just in case it's the Miami courthouse on Flagler 2:30. She then says, I told him I spoke with you earlier, but it's better if you call him. She then says, can you do it now? He says, I'm in and out of tunnels, so service goes out. I can't. I told him this already, and that it would be coordinated with you, not me calling again. So he's already set this stuff up. He's already done the spoof call to Mike Dippolito, telling him that he's this lawyer, Richard, whatever his name is, and he's going to do this scheme so that they can eventually have him arrested. She says, I'm going to be in a bright orange dress, and Mike in a yellow shirt and blue shorts. Be there at 2. We'll be there at 2. Be there before 2. We'll be there at 2. That was to Sergio. So telling Sergio what they're going to be wearing, Sergio says, okay. Then she texts Sergio, we're here across the street at a sushi Thai place. Let me know when you get here. We'll meet you in front of the courthouse. Sergio texts back, I'm at the door of the courthouse. Mike will tell you all about that. Then we're on July 25th. I just wanted to throw this one in there. So it's July 25th. It's like 7 o'clock in the evening. There's a text from Ms. Dippolito to Mike Stanley. And it says, soulmates is what we are. We are meant to be together. Do you know, I have baby names picked out. I want your child in me. So this is the woman who's telling Mike Dippolito that she's pregnant, but she's planning a pregnancy with Mike Stanley.
Objection, Judge, will we approach?
Yes.
Now we're on July 27th, so we're 4 days before the murder comes about. You guys will be real interested in how that comes about. So this is Miss Dippolito. She texts Mr. Stanley. She said, don't forget to use that 305 courthouse number when you call him. She says, remember, we went to the courthouse on Friday and met with your paralegal Sergio and gave him that letter. He says, yes, I should probably know what the letter says. She says, just that he wanted the administrative probation so he could travel with work. So administrative probation means there's no more recording. You just do everything by mail. You don't have to go see a probation officer anymore. She says, tell him you met with the judge on Friday and you'll let him know what's going on at the end of the week by the judge. FYI, the judge is Cohen, but don't mention his name. And then he says, K, going to call in a few min. She says, K. He says, you went to the court to meet Sergio Thursday, I believe. Anyway, I'm okay to call. She says, K, just tell it looks good and you'll call him at the end of the week. And then she says, are you on the phone with him? He says, we're still on July 27th. He says, I was. She says, laugh out loud. He just told me, thanks, baby. Because he's telling her, thanks, you're going to help me get off probation when she's really setting him up to get arrested. She says, I miss you. She says, do you think you can call the Treasury and see about freezing his account? Have them look up his case. The sooner his shit gets fucked up, the better. She says, what can be done to get him to violate probation? Did he ever mention to you our house? He says, hey, sorry, I don't know what it is, but it's a JZD, to step into a meeting. Yes, I was thinking the same thing about probation. He never mentioned the house. She says, let's act quickly, start with the Treasury, have them look up his case and see if they can freeze it. He says, K. She says, the sooner he gets jammed up, the sooner we can be in Paradise Island, baby. She says, I thought of a way to get him to sign the house over to me. This is really important. This is what leads to her wanting him murdered then. So pay attention to all the house stuff. He says, LOL, so did I. So remember, the house he purchased prior to marriage, it's in his name. She provides no source. They're only married for a few months. If they get divorced, guess what she gets? She doesn't get anything. She doesn't get any alimony. She gets what she came with. He gets to keep all his property, and he gets his house. But she believes if she gets the house in his name, or in her name, it's hers. That's what she believes. But she'll tell you she was wrong in her notes, in her diary. So 305. Actually, stay on July 27th. After he said LOL, so did I, he then says Richard recommends it. Remember, he's pretending to be Richard, the lawyer. Genius. She then says, he was freaking out the other day when he found out his friend knew we owned our house so much he thought we should put the house in my name. She says, exactly, I was just getting to that. So when you do the text messages, sometimes with the records, we may have texted back and forth, but the records may show up that the texts are kind of out of order. So when I do something, like when you look at it and you'll see something might be out of order, you can kind of follow it along a little bit later. She says, let's figure out tonight what to say exactly and tomorrow make the call. In the meantime, this is her still, in the meantime, see who you need to talk to freeze his account. And then she says, if he owes the Treasury over $300K, impossible, they can't seize the 100K in his account. She says, K, call before 4:30 because any later they just want to go home. That's like, us government workers. It's 4:30, we're going home. I wish. Then she says, any news, love? And he says, yeah, those people make me want to hang myself. We should talk later so we can kick this up. BTW, by the way, I love you. She says, sounds good. What time's a good time? He says, it's more difficult for you to talk to whenever you can or want, babe. She says, Kay, love you so much, infinity plus plus. He says, hey, really sorry about that, babe. I would only do that if it is really, really important. Give me a call. She says, I love you, just want my life with you. Let's get this motherfucker arrested. I'm so tired of his shit. She says, if he's locked up, I know he won't hurt my family. He doesn't know anyone on the inside. She says, I need the house, which we'll take care of tomorrow. Next, we need to figure out his account. Then she says, we need to figure out how to wire that money out of his account says feel it, or get the treasurer to freeze it. If he has nothing left, he has no power. Destruction of Mike Dippolito. Then Mike Stanley says, missing a probation appointment and drugs in his car. That's him. She says, we need to strategize the drugs. She says, baby, we need to make this happen with his arrest by the weekend. I need to be with you. Hate being away from you. She says, he has some here at the house too, but I want to put X pills, like extra pills, and Coke in the car and Xanax. He says, what if you know somebody who wants to buy juice? When he's talking juice, they're talking steroids. And he can make a lot. He gets caught. She says, he doesn't sell. No good. I told you, we need drugs in the car and it will put him away for a while. She says, so what do you think? He says, yeah, but he will know it was you. And she says, what do you mean? If they find it in the car? He says, yes. Who will he think put it there? She says, we need to figure that one out. We need to figure that one out. This plan can't fail. We need to get him locked up. She says, or we need to plant it in the house and have probation find it. You guys thought you had enemies. She says, baby, we need to get him and put him in jail. Then I'll know my family is safe. She says, we need to see which will work better, in the house or car. He says, the house can tip off the probation, but it's your house too. He can say, prove it's his, not yours. But if they found juice, then they would test him. She says, so we have to have both the problem with we have to have both. So we have to have both. The problem with the PO, meaning the probation officer, is he's dumb and lazy, another dumb and lazy government worker. She says, we need to make sure he finds it, meaning the probation officer. He says, we can get the PO pisted by him missing a meeting. I guess what he meant, pissed at him, by missing his probation meeting. It doesn't work like that. This is from her. It doesn't work like that. He has a whole week to go. Bad idea, baby. It doesn't work by appointment. She says, we need to figure out a detective with the Boynton PD. You can call, or his PO. We need to get this to work. I want to be with you so bad. I can't take this. I need to be with you, baby. He says, me too, love, me too. He says, let's figure it out ASAP. He then says, I'll make the call, sweetheart. She says, for sure, like I said, drugs have to be in the car or house. She says, I want you in me. I'm so horny for you. My life is blah without you. It has been for a long time. She says, baby, we need to pull this off by this weekend. I hate my life without you. He says, I have held on for you. We're meant to be. I'm not whole without you. I was really hoping you would miss me. She says, you were right. You're my life, my happily ever after marriage, a baby, soulmates, and best friends forever, and a lot of mimosas and fun. He says, I love to see you smile and hear you laugh and see you sleep in peace. I want you. I want it all. She says, me too. Let's get this shit it says handed, but it means handled, and we'll have it all. I really hate him and want to see him rot. She then says, we're still on July 27th. I love you. Think about how we can pull this off, and we'll strategize tomorrow. Do you think we can handle it this week? He says, as long as we come up with something, sure, that would be awesome. She says, I love you. Together we can do anything. We just need to be smart. I need to make sure he does serious time. He then says, as long as we come up with something, sure, that would be awesome. Do you know how happy you make me? Being with you was great. I miss you. He says, I miss you. She says, I want you to kiss me right now. He said, yeah, that would be nice. Really, really, really nice. She said, I'm so attracted to you, loved fucking you. It blew me away. I love having your hot cum in me. He says, you felt amazing, better than I dreamt over the past year. He says, we need to get past this shit, baby. And she says, then let's put his lying ass back in jail. Then we're still on July 27th. She says, think about what the plan is tomorrow. Research tonight, and we'll talk in the AM. Sweet dreams, angel, or my true and only love. So I don't know if you've gotten the pattern, but who's making who do all the work? So she's manipulating Mike Stanley the way she manipulated Mike Dippolito, the way she tried to manipulate the hitman, the way she tries to manipulate everybody involved in this case. This is still July 27th. She says, "We are going to make great parents, and we'll have a nanny full-time so we can still have fun and party and travel together." Of course, on Mike's money. He says, "I'll book a ticket for that ride," with that sideways smiley face. "We're both great and better together." Yeah, I would disagree with that. July 28th, so now we're 3 days before this. She texts him, "Were you able to come up with any ideas?" He says, "I looked online. Best would be a felony in the first or second degree." So a felony in the first degree means you can do up to 30 years in prison, and a felony in the second degree means you can do up to 15 years in prison. And if you're on probation and you commit one of those, and you're on probation for a first degree felony, you're fried. You're going up the river for a long time. It says a lot of years. Drugs made best suited. She says, "How much drugs for him to get the most time?" He says, "Not sure with just possession is. Selling is best, but that doesn't really fit. Call when you can." She says, "Well, we can put so much in the house or car that it will look like it was to sell." He says, "Yes, exactly. Need to be a bunch and packaged separate like intent to sell." She says, "Can you call the Treasury now and see who's handling his case? I thought of something really funny." He responds back, "Funny?" with a question mark. She says, "You could call the Treasury Department and to pretend to be him and pay them using his checking account and wipe him clean." He says, laugh out loud, "No, I'm not doing fraud." Okay. No, I'll plant drugs on people, but I'm not doing fraud. The Treasury is being difficult. They really don't talk to the public, and since it's not a tax issue, I'm having trouble getting to it. He says, getting to the correct department in person. She says, "All you have to do is get transferred to the person who is handling his case. It's a lot of money. Work your charm, love." More manipulation. She then says, "If he has no money, he has no power, and has no longer a threat." He says, "I'll charm you," smiley face. "I will try again. I'll keep getting tax people. Treasury is like all about tax." He says, "Need his address. Do you have his SS and account number?" She said, "I did them before and it wasn't an issue. Just have them look up his case. I want this over and done with." She then texts social 201. I'm not going to tell you the whole, you'll see it in here, but that's his social security number.
As we approach, objection?
Yes. Approach.
I don't want to let the world know his SS number. She says, "Can you call them now?" He says, "So I can give them an account number. Where is he storing money? That's what I have for them." She says, "Yes, they are supposed to freeze the account. That's why I don't understand why they are not doing. Shit, he owes 300K. It's crazy." She says, "Hey baby, are you going to call now?" He says, "Yes." She says, "Love you, let me know after." He says, "K, getting frustrated, but I love you." She says, "Love you, when it's done, it will be worth it." He says, laugh out loud, "Found the office on 3rd Ave. I'll call now." She says, "K, love you. Just please make sure they don't blow it. Tell them how much is in the bank account, Mad Media." He says, "Do you have the tax ID and bank account info for the new company?" She says, "I'll get you that info by end of day. Make sure they can get him first. Offer to pay for the steroid test." He says, "Was on for like 10 min. Can you talk? Need details now." She said, "Text me everything, baby. What happened? Who you talked to? Everything." She then says, "Oh, okay, good. Thought they said they couldn't do anything. How's it looking? Can they take him?" He says, "They will act." She says, "Awesome. what info do you need? When I call you, we can move forward, love. He says, you know. And she said, Kay, I'll call you in an hour. Now we're on still on July 28th. This is from him. He said, possession is only a misdemeanor. So a misdemeanor in Palm Beach County, or in the state of Florida, is only up to a year in the county jail. So you wouldn't do serious time, and typically people get probation or time served.
Objection, Judge.
What's the objection?
We approach?
Yes.
Sale is a felony. The possession charge by itself is not. So bad it's the probation violation that would be the bad part, and we don't know how bad. She says, can you look up the tax ID number online at Sunbiz? She can't even get his tax ID number. She says, I'll have the account numbers, I just need to see if you can look up the tax ID. He says, I can try, account number, question mark. He says, okay, I'll see, I'll send account number. She says, he says, and full company name. She says, can you ask them on the phone how long the punishment is when you talk to them? So, because he's gonna call the probation office and talk to them about violations and how long it's gonna be. He says, I can ask. She says, okay, thanks. He says, what is the full company name and account number? She says, Mad Media LLC, Bank of America, gives a bank account name. There is over 100K. He says, K, I'll search the name for ID. She then, so we're still on July 28th. He says, she says, personal is under his name. There is only 5,000, and it's same bank and account, and the same bank account number. And she gives a different bank account number. And then she says, love you so much. He says, do you have the business address? She says, it comes up in the Sunbiz website. She says, tell them about the Porsche too. He says, what about it? She says, tell them about the withdrawal for large sum also. He said, got it. She says, tell them about he was in Miami 2 Sundays ago for the game, and he spent $4,000 on the suite and invited someone who is also on probation. She said, he's not supposed to be in date without permission and not supposed to be hanging with people on probation. He says, okay, I'll call now. She says, thanks. He says, welcome, are you okay? She says, I miss you. Just want this fucker away. She says, were you successful? He says, yes, but don't think anything is going to happen overnight. I can touch base back in a few days. She said, why? What was their reaction? He says, have to pass it on to supervisor for review and what to do. I pressed the urgency. She says, did you give them the account numbers? What was their reaction when you told them the amount? He says, not much of a reaction about much. She was not at the time familiar with the terms of his probation. She says, these people. He says, I will call her again tomorrow to keep them accountable. I told her I was a tax-paying citizen, and this is not right. She said, me too. She said, so do you think we're wasting our time with them or what? He said, no, but we shouldn't just rely on them. She said, so what now? He says, follow up tomorrow and keep thinking this is killing us. She says, I know. He says, it's really hard. I'm trying really hard for you, love. And she says, I know you are. And he says, I'm trying really hard for you, love. Still on July 28th, she says, I can't stop thinking about you. He said, good, because I love you, and yes, baby, I'm trying to think of something. She said, we need to get him. I need to be with you. Still on July 28th, she said, so you have a few good ideas. All I think about is you, and to have that I have to put him away. He says, so you're telling me that's the only way? So now we're in July 29th. She texts him, how much of a payment can you make over the phone for it to go through with Bank of America? Treasury has collection department. When you Google them, all payments are made through them. I wanted you to call them to see if you could freeze his account. And she says, I just wanted you to ask them because collections people are always slimy. I need that account frozen. She said, all I kept thinking last night was being with you. He finally responds and he says, send me the number. I'd be happy to call for you. She says, can you Google it, baby? Just go to collection department for Treasury. She says, tell them he's going to move the money, and if they don't freeze it or withdraw it from the account, they'll never see a dime of the $365 he owes. He says, all right. She says, thanks, hope it works. She then texts him on the routing number for the bank, 06330,047 is the routing number to the business account. So if you guys remember with banking accounts, so first you have a routing number which alerts the Treasury who the bank is, the location, and then the bank account number is what belongs to you. But you need both in order to do anything. She says, when are you calling? He says, I'll call about 9:30. She says, Kay, normally collectors are shady. Couldn't imagine them not wanting to freeze it. He says, do you have a Treasury account or a reference number for his file? She said, give them his social. What happened? He said, not finding the num. She said, it's on their website. Go to the Treasury Department website and you'll see it. He says, only seeing main number, looking now. So she continues to use him to do all her dirty work. So she picked up a phone number. So now we're still on July 29th. I know it's boring. You guys want to stretch or something? I still have a few pages to go, and then I'm going to go on this. So hang in there. July 29th. There was an option on the site. It's an outside collection agency. He says, found a fraud reporting hotline. Kay, I'll look. She says, thanks, not it. Oh, she says, that's not it. He says, listen, I'm also trying to work. She says, I know, but we need to get this done. I'm going insane over here. He says, yeah, me too. She says, Kay, please hurry and look for the num. He says, call the main num and got it from them. She says, awesome. Text me after you talk to them. Love you. He says, need his address ASAP. She says, house or what it says on the checks. She then gives the house address, 1329 Via del Pepe, Boynton Beach, Florida, 33426 is the house. That's where Mike Dippolito was going to get murdered. He says, just got off. May help. Call when you can. She says, on the checks it says Boca address from Sundays. He says, hey babe, I promise I'm trying. I love you, I promise. She says, I know you are. Call the IRS and see what can be done, and please follow up with probation. Please, I love you so much. Just want to be with you. She says, do you think you should talk to the banks and the PO, and see where it gets us? He says, wouldn't hurt. Like to get to the DA. It's like a prosecutor like me. She texts him, tell him how he was in Miami but without permission for the game. Tell him how much is in the account, and tell him again about him selling. She says, tell him that he sells steroids. Tell him he bought a brand new Porsche with drug money and where to find the steroids. She says, that PO could come as soon as today, and tell him he went to the game without permission. He has CC charges, credit card charges that day to prove he was there. He says, K. She says, that PO had seen the Corvette but never the Porsche. The PO has to be able to get him on something. This is such bullshit. Tell him you're tired of him selling drugs and arguing with his wife in the neighborhood. Tell him I've seen him hit her and she always looks scared. So now she's trying to get into this domestic violence. Now Mike's beating, not only is she going to destroy his life, now he's beating her up. She then says, tell him where to find the steroids, but to play it off. Tell him he paid cash for the house and cars with drug money. He says, got it. I will call at 1. Baby, I promise we will get through this. Me, you, and your family. She says, thanks, baby. I trust you. He said, good, you should. She says, I'm dying here, baby. Let me know when you're calling. I'm freaking out. He says, I'm so sorry for you, love. I never want to see you in pain. I'll call in about 10 minutes. She says, Kay, please. So now we're still on July 29th. You guys okay? Does anyone need a break? No? Not torturing you? All right, good. So we have, it's still July 29th, it's like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Hey baby, can you call the IRS today? When you talk to them, tell them about the Treasury and the fake employees he uses as write-offs. She says, what time can you call them? I just want someone to give us good news, you know, I'm so unhappy. He says, called one IRS Treasury hotline and gave them what applies to their department, and gave me another hotline that applies to other stuff. We should just call the cops. He says, and report the juice possession. He says, I'll call the other hotline now. She says, Kay, thanks. And then she says, text me and tell me what the hotline says. All right, Judge, can we take a 5-minute break? I think I'm wearing them out.
Approach for just a minute. All right, members of the jury, we're going to continue. If you need a break, all you have to do is give me a signal, and we'll be happy to take one. Everyone okay for now? Okay, we're good. Go ahead, Mr. Williams.
Don't let me wear you guys out. Okay, I know it's a lot of information. The good news is you're going to get it, and you're going to have it back there with you guys at the end of the case, but it just lays out the whole case for you guys and explains all this stuff that happened from July 31st. Still on July 29th, she texts him and she says, me, you, and Bella, one happy family. Her dog is named Bella. She says, and I want a Morkie. Do you know that I already have boy names picked out for our baby? He says, sweet. Wow, so cool, I'm in. Oh, and names. I have no doubt you have them. Can you feel me smiling? She says, me too. Do you like Anthony James? He said, yes, I do. You're so cute. Still July 29th. She says, funny, do you know how much I love you? He says, you know, babe, I do know you love me, and it feels great. What a dipshit I was before when we were together. She says, the present and future is all that matters. I never stopped loving you, and now I'm in love with you. He says, deal, smiley face. I have always loved you, baby, and now do so much. Then she says, I want you. Now we're on July 30th, so now we're getting close. The day before. It's gonna, it's really narrow now. She said, he texts her, hey, gonna be calling. Am I saying anything about any other stuff like the car? He says, hello, hey baby, they opened at 8:30, do you want me to call? He said, spoke to lawyer, can't do without your consent. She says, he's going to shower, I'll text you when he gets out. He says, Kay, thanks baby. She says, Kay, he's out, remember, use the spoof number. She says, don't text me after you talk to him, I'll text you. He says, Kay, give me 5. She says, Kay. She says, if he doesn't answer, call him back, thanks. And she says, we're going to switch title to me tomorrow. So this is when the house stuff starts. So now the day before this happens, her meeting with Mohammed Shahadi to hire a hitman is when the thing about the title really gets rolling, that they're going to switch the house into his name. Because they're telling him that if the house is in his name and he pays off his restitution, it will all look good, and then he could get off probation. So that's the scheme that they're running. She says, don't call me, love you, text if you want. He says, Kay, you okay? She says, yeah, read my text. Still on July 30th. And she says, I'm starting to feel like we're getting close to our goal. What do you think? He says, yes, I'm trying really hard to be patient, LOL. But yes, baby, yes. She says, you have been and are amazing. He says, guess that is what true love does, and thank you. All right, now we're getting to the real interesting stuff. Now we're on July 31st. So it says, this is from her. We've accomplished one huge goal this week, and that's getting the house in her name. And that's the house. I just need you to help me figure out the rest for next week, because the house isn't enough. We still got to destroy his life. So then there's a text there. It says, provided by Metro 411, Independence Title, Delray Beach has a phone number, and that's where the title transaction is going to occur. So they do the quick claim deed from him to her so that she becomes the title owner of the property and house. he texts her, can you talk for a min? He says, baby, I am thinking, strategizing, I promise. He then he texts again, got an email from Best Apartment. Is that from you? Question mark. Think that's the one they were building across from the Caroline that you did see from the roof. She says, did you check the email? I like the views and big windows of shopping for an apartment together. He says, yes, I checked before. Yes, me too. I'll send you, it's probably I sent you, but, oh yeah, it's yes, me too, a couple exclamation points. I sent you a text before, after I looked, did you get them? He says, the one from Best Apartment, right, with a question mark? She said, yes, LOL, love it. Whichever one emailed you. He says, maybe me, you, Bella, and maybe another pup. We'd be so happy. She said, yes, Kobe the Morkie. Still on July 31st, she texts him, did the transfer, but he said, because we're married, I can't sell it without his signature, even though it's in my name. So she gets the house, but guess what she can do with it? Nothing. She can't do anything with it. So now it's like, oh. So he texts her back. He says, sorry, fuck. Kind of what we talked about, this AM, marital assets. May benefit somehow. This is where we get to the murder. Because if you're married and you kill your spouse, guess what you get? All your spouse's assets. He then texts her and says, tune up your car a bit at a time. He says, divorce him while he's locked up. Judge will side with you. She says, I want my life with you right now. We'd be getting our party weekend started. He says, yes, we would. Need to clean up your mess, baby. Life is waiting. She says, I'm ready to spend the rest of my life smiling with you and making you smile. We're soulmates, me and you forever. All right, so I'll kind of jump in and out from here. So now we start with what's going on here. July 31st of 2009. Earlier this day, the defendant calls an old acquaintance who she had an affair with named Mohammed Shahadi. Mohammed Shahadi, they had a little affair. It was like there was nothing serious. They didn't really know who each other were, but they had sex. She wants to meet with him to get a gun and find somebody to kill her husband. So he meets with her on July 31st, and he thinks she's so serious. He's like, oh shit, go to the police. So Mohammed Shahadi actually saved Mike Dippolito's life. He goes to the Boynton Beach Police Department that night, and he goes to see a detective, and he said he's scared for the life of Dalia Dippolito's husband. She doesn't know him. He doesn't even know her last name. He doesn't even know what her married last name is. She's dead serious on having him killed. She was trying to get Mohammed Shahadi involved in the killing, either getting her a gun off the street, offering to pay him money to do it, find a hitman, do it himself. She's trying different things with him. She was telling she's telling him that she was telling other officers that Mike Dippolito was beating her. So she was trying to, remember, she was going to get him arrested from other stuff, from the domestic. But that was all a lie. She told him that Mike Dippolito is the nicest, sweetest nerd, but she can't stand him. He would never lay a hand on her. He explained that he didn't know her last name because she's now married, and he gave police her phone number. So the cops got this, and they're like, crap, what do we do? It's a murder for hire? These guys have never even dealt with one before. This is not a common crime. This isn't like something goes on every day. So they've never dealt with one before. They're like, crap, what do we do? So we don't know if this guy's telling the truth. It might be a crackpot off the street. Let's set up a meeting. Let's get together with Mohammed Shahadi. They made him a confidential informant. So they made him sign paperwork and said basically that he would be an agent of the police department. They would try to keep his name quiet, but obviously there's no way. I mean, obviously she would know he's involved in this because it's going to be recorded, and he's the one that's leading her to the hitman. So the next day, Saturday. So that was Friday night at 11 p.m. that happened. So now on Saturday, Mohammed Shahadi goes to the police department, and they wire his car. So they talk to him about what they want him to do, and they basically want him to tell her that he knows a person that could actually do the murder for her, and it's going to cost her some money, and that he could set up a meeting between these people, and that this guy's reliable. So you'll see all this There's videos, there's a video of this, there's audio statements, so everything's gonna be documented for you guys, starting from this point forward, okay? So they put the hidden video recorder in his car, they set up the meeting, and they go to the same, he meets her at the same mobile gas station, which is right where they live. So they live at the intersection of Congress and Gateway, and the mobile station's there, there's a CVS there, Chili's, this is where all the action occurs on the case. The murder's supposed to happen there. The only different issue was when she told the hitman to murder him at the bank down in Boca, but that never happened. So then they agree to meet on July, that's where the same way they met on July 31st. So at 4:15 they meet. He tells her that he knows the guy, that's a hitman. She gives him money. She gives him $1,200 in cash. And the cash is supposed to be for the hitman to be able to buy a gun off the street so that he can get rid of it, get it disposed, do the murder, and some money to set up, to basically buy cell phones, to get other people involved, so that they're gonna do, so let's just start it. She brings the $1,200, gives it to him. She brings a picture of her husband, so that the hitman knows who to kill, and a picture of her home, so the hitman knows where she lives, and talks about it and tells him that she wants to do this. That's Saturday. Sunday, nothing occurs. There's really no action going on at all Sunday. So the deal is that they're gonna he's gonna arrange this meeting. Now we get to Monday. Monday morning, Mohammed Shahade, these are all, you'll get to hear all these things. He tells her that the hitman is coming up. She mentions that she may want the murder done at her house. She tells Mohammed Shahade to try to be there when she meets with the hitman, because she's gonna meet with the hitman this day, this Monday. 1:04. Oh, actually, you know what, let me go through something real quick. August 1st. So here on the Saturday. So when she met with Mohammed, these are texts that occur that day. She says, "What are you doing?" Then she says, "Call me." She says, "I'm still in shock over what you said. Wow, I love you so much." He said, "Baby, I was blown away. Stars are lining up for us, love." So same day that this is going on. Oh, then this is the interesting part. So pay attention to this. This is where they try to twist it like it's a joke. He texts her, says, "Hey, thanks for the service. My confidence is so much better and think I may start seeing somebody very serious. I talk to girls much better now." And then she texts him and says, "No problem. I am glad the role playing has helped you. Good luck and stay in touch." So she's trying to create like an alibi that all the prior texts, in case anybody ever pulls this stuff, oh, we were just role playing. This was all fake. But then they screwed up again, because right after that, well, he finishes up and he says, "Thank you, I feel more comfortable in expressing myself." But then later on that same day, she says, "Me too, when it's meant to be fake, can't change." I mean, and there's more. I'll go over the other ones with you. Actually, I'll go over them with you now, because these are all on Sunday. She says, "Yummy, I want you so bad right now. I feel bored and blah without you. You're my happy ending." He says, "I feel the same, just getting by. We need to live life." She says, "For sure, I miss my BFF. We're perfect together." She says, "Call me." She says, "Just emailed you an apartment." He says, "Yes, wow," with a smiley face and exclamation points. And that's it for the text messages. So now we go, we got here, did I go over this with you guys? Yeah, I did. So then at 1:04, there's another call. So Miss Dippolito tells Mohammed Shahade that Mike Dippolito is going to the bank on Wednesday. So she comes up with the idea, this is a great idea. Let's kill him off the property. I don't think any blood in my house, because it's my house now. He's going to be getting $10,000 in cash for his business partner. She tells Mohammed Mohammed Shahade tells the defendant that he doesn't want, he's like, "I don't want Mike Dippolito killed. I don't want your money. I don't want nothing to do with this. I'm only helping you. This is all I want to do with this. I'm not getting involved in it." 2:47, she gets a call from the hitman. His name is Woody Jean. Woody Jean is a Boynton Beach police officer. So Woody has kind of a little bit of dread hair. Woody pretends to be a hitman. He's telling her to bring $3,000 and a key to her home. At 3:08, Defendant tells Mohammed Shahadi, so right after she gets done talking to the hitman, she calls Mohammed Shahadi, and she says that the hitman what he just told to her, she's concerned that the hitman will rob her. She said, I'm worried that the guy's gonna go into my house, he's not gonna kill Mike, and he's just gonna steal all my crap out of the house if I give him the key, and that's why she doesn't wanna do it. She tells Mohammed Shahadi that the hitman doesn't agree to be paid after, she's not gonna give him the $3,000. I already gave $1,200, I'm not giving another $3,000. I'll pay him in the back end, but if he's not gonna do it, give me my gun, and I'm gonna go get somebody else to kill him. So this is a problem now for the cops, because they're like, crap, if she gets the gun and doesn't go through with this, we lose control of this. This is a big problem, because now Mike Dippolito's life is really in danger. Because right now they have control over it. They know what's going on. They're able to know Mike's not gonna get killed yet. Still the same day. This paper's like fly paper. Sticks together. Now it's 5:24 in the afternoon. Ms. Dippolito calls the hitman and tells him to go to the CVS on Congress and Gateway. So that's where they're gonna end up meeting. Mohammed Shahadi's with her. He gets on the phone, he discusses the cars that each will be driving. The hitman is driving a red Sebring, and they are driving a gold Tahoe, which is, you'll see the car in the videos, and that's Mike Dippolito's truck. So she's driving Mike Dippolito's truck. The hitman tells her that, so he gets her back on the phone, he tells her that her friend doesn't need to be in the car. When they discuss the hit, it's only him and her. That's it, this is private conversation. Shortly after, you'll see the video of her and the hitman. She tells him that she wants this, and it's, just pay attention. I mean, it's not that long, but there's a lot going on. You can hear her very clearly. You might not hear everything clearly, like from the hitman or something, but you'll hear her very clearly. Because this case is built on one thing, and one thing only: her intent, her words, and what she wanted to do. That's what this case is built on. So just pay attention to her. She suggests Wednesday. She tells him because Mike Dippolito's gonna be taking $10,000 cash out of the bank, and then she can rob him and kill him there and get the money. And then it would look like a normal robbery, and nobody's a suspect, and everybody. So he told her basically, the hitman was, look, I'll look into that. That's a great idea, and I'd like to get that money and stuff. But if that doesn't work out, it's gonna have to be done at your house. And if it's done at your house, you're gonna have to be out of the house. So I'm gonna come in. I'm gonna make it look like a robbery. Like a robbery gone bad, I break a few windows, I'm gonna put 2 bullets in his head. And she's like, good, good. She tells him about Mike Dippolito's habits, like his times, he's OCD, stuff like that, that he just had surgery on a back, so he can't even fight, because he's recovering from surgery. About how he walks his dog out in front of the house, the times he does it between 6:30 and 7 o'clock, or 7:30 every morning, same thing, walks him across the street to the lake, have a nice walk. It's a great place to put a bullet in his head. Payment for the murder. And then he gives her an opportunity to back out. He says, listen, you sure you want this done? And she says, I am 5, and she says a lot more, but one of the things she says is she's 5,000% sure she wants him killed. 5,000% sure. But they didn't do it then. They gave her 2 more days to think about it. This is August 4th, so now we're on Tuesday. The only thing that really happens on the case on Tuesday is Woody Jean, the hitman, calls the defendant, and he tells her that he investigated the bank, and it's just not gonna work. There's too many people, it's too public, too many people would see him killing them. It's gotta happen at the house. You need to be out of the house by 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. You're either gonna come home and find one of 2 things. You're gonna come home and find a dead body, or you're gonna find nothing. August 5th on Wednesday. So she had the opportunity to back out on August 3rd. She had the opportunity to back out on August 4th. She had the opportunity to back out on August 5th. And what does she do on August 5th? She wasn't kidding. She was 5,000% sure. She gets in her car. She takes all the expensive jewelry that she owns, and she drives off to the gym so that Mike Dippolito could be murdered in her own house. The police stage a crime scene. They pretend like there's a crime scene going on there. They call her back to the scene after they do it, and they tell her that her husband was murdered inside her house. And they said, we don't know for sure what's going on. You'll see the video of that, the acting. The police then take her back to the police department, and they interview her like they would interview, a normal victim in a case. And they're basically telling her, what do you know? Who would want to kill your person? She just starts throwing out names. He's on probation. Everybody hates him. And she'll hear this from other things she was telling Mohammed, and from Woody Jean, she was telling them, I'll just tell the cops that everything, that all these people hate him and everybody was out to get him, so we'll deflect and put everything on. She does exactly what she said. Then what they do is they bring Woody John into the interview room, and they say, "You recognize this guy?" She says, "No." And he says, "No, I don't recognize her." She's like, "You sure you don't recognize this guy?" And she said, "No, I don't recognize him." And she was just in the car with him 2 days earlier. And he says, "Well, why was he coming out of the front door of your house?" She says, I don't know, I don't recognize this guy." They take Woody John out of there, and then they tell her the gig is up, that everything was recorded. We know exactly what you did. I didn't do anything, and she just denies and denies and denies. And that's the case. There's quite a bit more that you guys are going to get, but that's the nuts and bolts of the case. And when you guys listen to all this evidence, when it comes in from up there, we're going to ask you to come back and find her guilty as charged, because she is absolutely, overwhelmingly guilty of solicitation to commit first-degree murder. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you, Mr. Williams. For the defense, Mr. Claypool?
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is a coin. I've got a quarter in my hand. The reason why I'm showing you a quarter is because the side I'm showing you is tails, and then there's another side of this coin that's a heads. So there are two sides to every story. You've just heard Mr. Williams tell you his version of what he believes the facts are going to show in this case. Now it's my turn. We're in a courtroom in South Florida because we believe that the evidence in this case is so vastly different than what Mr. Williams has outlined for you. What this case is about is not Dalia Dippolito intending to kill Mike Dippolito. What the evidence is going to show in this case is a Boynton Beach Police Department that was in a frenzy. They were determined to use that young woman as a pawn to create fiction, to try to create a felony. And what the evidence is going to show in this case is fiction is not a felony. What do I mean by that? You're probably sitting there, what's he talking about? Fiction? Well, let me tell you about the fiction. Mr. Williams forgot to mention one monumental piece of evidence in this case that you don't have. I saw you all taking notes. You should do that. His Honor told you to do that. But make sure to consider everything before you make a decision in this case. Because the one big piece of information he forgot to tell you about was a TV show called Cops. You ever heard of that show? Cops TV show. They were filming at the Boynton Beach Police Department during the time that Mr. Williams mentioned. In fact, the story of Dalia Dippolito in this case begins actually back in September of 2008. It doesn't start when Mr. Williams told you it started with these ridiculous text messages. And by the way, let's talk a little bit about those. You heard about 30 minutes of text messages between Dalia Dippolito and a guy named Mike Stanley. Did you hear any evidence in any of those text messages about Dalia Dippolito wanting to kill Mike Dippolito? Well, the evidence will show you, because he's going to give you those text messages, and you'll see there's not one mention in any of those text messages about her wanting to kill Mike Dippolito. In fact, you heard Mr. Williams tell you that she wanted his account frozen by the IRS. He told you that. You know why? Because Mike Dippolito is a convicted felon, two-time convicted felon, and he owed close to $200,000. You know who he owed that money to? A bunch of elderly folks. He's going to come in here and testify. I'll ask him about it, and you can hear it out of his mouth. He'll tell you. He got on the phone, and he would call old people, retired people, who had their retirement money, and say, hey, I've got this investment company. Send me some money. and I'll make you some money in foreign investments. And you know what the evidence is going to show in this case? That Mike Dippolito would take the checks from these older people that had all their money in their retirement. And you know what he'd do with those checks? He'd take them right over to his personal bank account and he cashed those checks. He didn't invest any of that money. And that's why those text messages were going on. Freeze that money. If Dalia Dippolito is so interested and has such a motive to kill Mike Dippolito for money, because that's what he's suggesting, then ask yourself this question in this case. Why would she ask the IRS to freeze his account? The evidence is going to show that she asked the IRS to freeze his account so that he could stop ripping off these people, because he had 28 years of probation. You know why? Because he had an obligation to pay back all that money that he stole and swindled from elderly folks. He had to pay back every month that money. And you know what he was doing? He wasn't paying back that money. In fact, he's going to testify. I've got it right here. He'll testify in front of you under oath that he wasn't even reporting all the money that he was making. Every month, he had to fill out a probation report to his 5 probation officers. And he had to tell them how much money he's making so that they could make sure, the government could make sure he's paying back these old people that he swindled money from. And he lied about that too. So those text messages were trying to stop him from doing that and not paying back these people. She doesn't get the money if she kills them. The government gets the money to pay back people that he swindled. So let's get that fact straight. That evidence, none of that evidence that you just heard proves a single thing in this case. This case is about one thing. On August 5th, when Dalia Dippolito was arrested, is there sufficient evidence in this case to prove that she solicited somebody to kill her husband? That's what this case is about. And the evidence in this case is going to show you that not only did Dalia Dippolito never intend to have her husband killed, but the Boynton Beach Police Department, through its own conduct. You're going to hear testimony from Detective Marino. I'll cross-examine him. We're going to bring in, by the way, a gentleman named Sergeant Frank Ramsey. He was the second guy up on this investigation. They're not going to call him. We will. We're going to call him and we're going to ask him what he thought about this investigation. And he'll tell you that that Cops TV show should have never been filming. And you know what he'll tell you? That the reason why Cops TV show shouldn't be filming an investigation is because people act differently when they're being filmed. He's going to tell you that. And why is that important? Because the evidence in this case is going to clearly show you that this police department manufactured this alleged crime, that they had an opportunity for fame and fortune. In fact, you know what you're going to hear? You're going to hear a young woman named Stephanie Slater sit right there, and I'm going to ask her a few questions. You know what she's going to tell you? She's going to tell you that the Cops TV show, she first contacted them back on September 2nd, 2008. 2 years before, almost a year and a half before. And I'm going to show you some emails. She sends an email to the Cops TV show, pitching them, wanting to get the Boynton Beach Police Department on the Cops TV show. She even sends them an email telling them about all the cool crimes that are being committed that the Boynton Beach Police Department's involved in, right? And you're going to hear evidence in this case that's going to show you that the moment that police department heard about, oh, a murder for hire, wow, we just struck the jackpot. That's what you're going to hear in this case, because their behavior changed dramatically the moment that Mohammed Shahade makes that phone call. Remember, Mr. Williams told you Mohammed Shahade is the confidential informant. And make no mistake about it, Dalia Dippolito had an affair with him. We're not hiding that from you. She'd known him for 8 years. But he makes that phone call on August 1st. And you know what that phone call is? Mr. Williams forgot to tell you that too. The first phone call made by Mohammed Shahade to the Boynton Beach Police Department, he says to the Boynton Beach Police Department, I know this woman. She was a victim of domestic abuse, and she feels like either she wants to die or she wants him dead. But you know what else he says in this phone call to Boynton Beach Police Department? Mohammed Shahade says, this isn't a crime. Dalia Dippolito isn't capable of doing this. And all you gotta do is pick the phone up and call Dalia Dippolito. There's my phone, right? If this police department was determined to get justice in this case, they would have picked the phone up and called.
Roger, got an objection.
So Mr. Shahade made it clear to the Boynton Beach Police Department, all you gotta do to resolve this situation is pick the phone up and call Dalia Dippolito. She needs your help, give her a phone call, and this will all be taken care of. She's not capable of killing Mike. This isn't serious. It's not a crime. Those are his exact words. We're gonna call him as a witness. You'll hear him. So you must be asking yourself then, what's the evidence going to show in this case, right? Did the Boynton Beach Police Department call Dalia Dippolito? Did they investigate the domestic abuse that she reported? Well, the evidence in this case will tell you a big flat N-O. No. The evidence will show not a single phone call made by anybody at Boynton Beach PD to Dalia Dippolito. The evidence will show not a single thing done by Boynton Beach PD to investigate the domestic abuse. You want to know why? Because the evidence in the case will show that they had struck the lottery. They didn't want the domestic abuse. That wasn't juicy. You ever watch the Cops TV show? No? You'll hear evidence about the Cops TV show. A murder for hire, that's a pretty juicy crime on that show. So, what they did is they immediately called Mohammed Shahade into the police station. So remember, this is August 1st, 2009. Shahade makes that phone call. He asks the police department to intervene and simply make a phone call to this woman. And the evidence is going to show she's vulnerable at this moment. She's reported domestic abuse. We believe the evidence in this case will show that the Boynton Beach Police Department acted in a predatory fashion, that they exploited Dalia Dippolito's vulnerability. They exploited it. And they did that to attempt to manufacture a script, a good script for the Cops television show. Now, how do we prove that in this case? Here's what I think the evidence will show. A detective named Alex Marino, you'll hear from him. He tells Shahade, you need to come to the police station. You know what Shahade tells him? You'll hear it. He tells Detective Marino, I don't want to come to the police station. Detective Marino says to Mr. Shahade, you must come into the police station. Shahade says, I don't want to get involved because I simply want you to call her and it'll be taken care of. Marino says, get into the police station. Shahade is concerned. He goes into the police station the next morning. This is really important. what you're going to hear about what happened now in the morning of August 2nd, you're going to hear Mr. Shahade tell you that he was given a packet. It's called he didn't know this, but it's called a confidential informant packet. And he'll tell you nobody explained anything about what's inside the confidential informant packet. And Mr. Shahade will tell you. In fact, Detective Marino told him, all you got to do, dude, is sign here, sign this confidential informant packet, and you'll remain confidential on this investigation. That's what Shahade thought was going to happen. So that's the first lie that you're going to hear from the Boynton Beach Police Department. Marino lies to Shahade about the confidential informant packet to get him to sign it, where he then is signing a document saying, I'll cooperate. But Shahade continues to tell Marino, I do not want to be involved in this investigation. Shahade is going to tell you that he was threatened by Detective Marino to be prosecuted if he didn't participate in this, what they call an undercover investigation. That's right. And what you're going to hear in this case are two pieces of key evidence that show that that is not only inappropriate, it's illegal. You're going to hear from a witness named Tim Williams, a 40-year retired lieutenant from the Los Angeles Police Department. He'll come in here and tell you that it is illegal to tell somebody that you must remain on an undercover investigation or else you will be prosecuted. And the other piece of evidence that I'm going to prove in this case that I'll show you is what's called a directive. Boynton Beach Police Department has what's called directives, and they're like policies and procedures. They are basically rules that the police officers must follow. This is going to read you the rule. This is evidence in the case. This is their own directive on how to handle an undercover investigation. And it says, an informant will be deactivated. By the way, the key word will. Not might, not possibly, will. An informant will be deactivated when he or she no longer has the potential or the ability to furnish information or services of use to the police department. Semicolon. When he or she is no longer willing to cooperate with the department. That's that. It says it right there. Mohammed Shahade will come in here and tell you, he said, I no longer wish to cooperate in this investigation. That's their rule. And the Boynton Beach Police Department's rule says the investigation is supposed to end at that point. That Mr. Shahade should have been what's called deactivated. And deactivated means he's removed from that investigation. That's their rule. So why is that important in this case? Because all these tapes that Mr. Williams is going to show you, he's going to show you videotapes of Miss Dippolito in a car with Shahade. Then you're going to see another tape with Dalia Dippolito in a car with this gentleman named Witty Jean, the guy that was playing the undercover hit guy. Well, the evidence in this case will show, and you'll hear it from Mr. Williams too, that any evidence obtained in an illegal fashion against their own policies and procedures is contaminated. It's contaminated. It's toxic. And we're going to show you through testimony of Mr. Williams that it cannot be relied upon. Why? Because the integrity of the investigation has been completely demolished. Let's talk a little bit more about what the evidence will show about the integrity. Let's talk about integrity. You are also going to hear evidence in this case about the importance of preserving evidence, right? During a police investigation. It's really, really important to make sure that when you're doing an undercover investigation, and you're recording phone calls, that you keep the phone calls, right? You want to know each time the informant's making a phone call to Miss Dippolito, vice versa, or this gentleman named Witty John, if he's calling Miss Dippolito, you want to know what's on those phone calls. Why? Well, you're going to hear Frank Ramsey tell you why. You'll hear Detective Marino tell you why. You want to know why that's really important? Because the evidence will show that it removes any speculation about what was discussed in those phone calls. So that when we are in a courtroom, or if we ever end up in this courtroom, we're not left to guess. What did they talk about? What did they discuss? Did Dippolito say something that might have helped her out? Well, guess what you're going to hear in this case? At least 25 controlled phone calls. By controlled, Detective Marino is going to come in here and tell you that a controlled phone call is, okay, Mr. Shahade, I want you to get on the phone and call Dalia Dippolito. And before you do that, I'm going to mic you up and make sure this is wired up so that we can record the phone call, right? That's called a controlled phone call. So Mr. Williams, he'll play you a handful of those phone calls during the trial, right? You'll hear some of those. But guess what? You're not going to hear at least 25 phone calls by Shahade to Dippolito. There's no audio recordings provided to us on those. So the evidence is going to show it's a major problem in terms of compromising the integrity of the investigation. And before I get to the uncontrolled phone calls, I forgot to mention another important fact. Shahade will tell you that Detective Marino was calling him sometimes 10 times a day to get him, to get Dippolito on tape, to get her to meet so they could tape it. That's how desperate he was to get this done. And you're going to hear testimony from Shahade. He'll tell you that Marino told him, I've got a short window to get this done. 72 hours, by the way. And you know what? The 72 hours adds up, if you think about it in this case. Because the first phone call by Shahade to Boynton Beach PD, August 1st, right? He goes in to the station August 2nd. And they do what's called this staged crime scene on August 5th. Oh my gosh. Wait a minute. That's 72 hours. That's the 72-hour window that Marino had to make this happen. So this police department was determined to make it happen at every expense, including the destruction of evidence. Let's talk about the uncontrolled phone calls now. Uncontrolled phone calls are, let's say Shahade goes home, or he goes to work, and he makes a phone call to Dalia Dippolito. If he is a confidential informant, even though he doesn't want to be one, those phone calls have to be recorded as well. And Shahade's going to come in here and tell you that he made at least, he'll say 10, 20, 30, possibly more phone calls that he made outside the presence of Detective Marino to Dalia Dippolito during this 72-hour window. Why is that important? Because the police department's own policies and procedures require those phone calls to be recorded. And you're going to hear some testimony from a detective named Bonifaire. He works at Boynton Beach PD. He'll tell you. There are easy ways to record the phone calls. There's what's called key fobs. Easy. Digital recording devices. It's really, really easy. And they had it available to them. And they, the Boynton Beach Police Department, did not do anything to ensure that those phone conversations were recorded. Again, resulting in contaminated evidence in this case that cannot be relied upon to convict Dalia Dippolito. And then let's talk about one other key piece of evidence that's missing in this case. Mr. Williams told you about an encounter on August 3rd. I know the dates get kind of jungled in your mind. Remember, August 1st is that phone call by Shahadi to the police department. August 2nd, 2009, he's forced to go into the police department. And by the way, I forgot to mention one other thing before I tell you about the Chili's encounter. When Shahadi first goes into the Boynton Beach Police Department, a 2-hour interview is conducted of Shahadi. And guess what? The evidence will show you in this case, the Boynton Beach Police Department they say they didn't record those first 2 hours. Should think those first 2 hours important? The evidence is going to show that those first 2 hours weren't recorded because the police department was scripting this manufactured murder for hire case for the Cops TV show. That's why it's not recorded. And you're going to hear further testimony from Shahade. 2 of the police officers were laughing. They were laughing when that first 2-hour interview took place. Evidence will show that doesn't sound like a police department worried about a domestic abuse call. They were worried about how they could turn this into something really spectacular and something really dramatic so that the police department could look great and get a lot of fame and fortune. Speaking of which, you're also going to see an email from Stephanie Slater, from the former chief of police of the Boynton Beach Police Department. He's no longer the chief. He was at the time. And guess what his email said? Hey, Stephanie, make sure to let me know when the Cops TV show of Dalia Dippolito airs so that we can have a big viewing party. Big viewing party. The evidence will show that's not justice. Let's talk about the Chili's encounter. So now we're on August 3rd, 2005. That's 2 days now before when I'm going to talk to you about a staged crime scene. August 3rd. Mr. Williams mentioned to you that this gentleman named Whitty Jean was the alleged undercover hit guy. Well, what the evidence is going to show you is that every single phone call between Whitty Jean and Dalia Dippolito, except for one, was initiated by Whitty Jean. He was calling her, and guess what? He didn't even know about Mohammed Shahadi, the confidential informant. This is how much of a frenzy this police department was in. They picked up the phone on August 2nd, or August 3rd. They called Whitty Jean into their office. Sergeant Sheridan calls Whitty Jean into his office. Hey, man, we got to get a meeting set up with her and get her on tape. And Whitty Jean, nice young man, he'll come in here and tell you, I didn't even know who Mohammed Shahadi was. So the evidence will tell you that's improper police practices to not know, not have any information about what's going on with the confidential informant. I don't even think they had her last name. I don't think any information was done on Dalia. I don't even think they knew her last name to investigate. Who is this woman? Is she a convicted felon? Does she have a prior criminal record? Nothing was done by the police department to even figure out who she was before they called Whitty Jean in to get his butt into a car, to get it wired, to get the video set up so that they could get her on tape, so that they could run it over to the Cops TV show folks. so they could get it to Stephanie Slater. Stephanie Slater will come in here. She then gets the tape. Did you know that? You'll hear it. Stephanie Slater. She's the media directions person at Boynton Beach PD. They run the tape over to her within an hour of this staged crime scene on August 5th. She runs it over to YouTube and pops it onto YouTube. I'll read you another directive. This, by the way, is their rules again. And by the way, the evidence will show within 7 or 8 minutes, the video went viral during a pending investigation. It's a pending criminal investigation. The media relations director of Boynton Beach PD takes a tape of a staged crime scene and runs over and posts it for the whole world to see. But here's the rule. The Boynton Beach Police Department rules say that you can't distribute or disseminate any facts that might hinder the investigation of a crime or incident or jeopardize the rights of a person under arrest. We'll get back to Stephanie Slater in a minute. Let me backtrack to the Chili's, okay? Now, remember, Chili's restaurant, I got ahead of myself. Chili's restaurant is August 3rd, 2005. That's the same day that Whitty Jean, remember Whitty Jean is the Boynton Beach Police Department gentleman now who's acting as this undercover hit. And he's the guy that had a 30-minute briefing, knew nothing about the confidential informant. They were hurrying up, getting the car set up. He's calling now Dalia Dippolito. All the phone calls are initiated by him. Tim Williams, remember I told you about Tim Williams? He'll come in here and tell you that's inappropriate. That the police department should not be initiating all these phone calls. They are the ones that are escalating and should not be making the phone calls to the suspect. That's inappropriate. That compromises the integrity of the investigation. So what happens then is Whitty Jean calls Dalia Dippolito around 2 o'clock on August 3rd. Hey, meet me in an hour. Well, she doesn't meet him in an hour. She meets him about 3.5 hours later. Why? Because in between, she then meets with Mohammed Shahade. Remember Shahade? He's being pressured. The evidence is going to show. Shahade is being pressured to make sure that he gets Dippolito on tape, or else he has been threatened by the police department to be prosecuted. He's got to get her on tape. So he's now meeting with Dippolito that same afternoon, August 3rd, before she meets with Whitty Jean. You have to be wondering, evidence is going to show that's an important meeting. And the evidence in this case will show you that we don't have the audio recording of that critical encounter at Chili's. We don't have it. It was never given to us. In fact, you're going to hear a lie by the Boynton Beach Police Department. They'll come up here and lie to you and tell you, we had a malfunction. That's what they're going to tell you. The wiring on Mohammed Shahade at that Chili's encounter on August 3rd, 2009, malfunction. That's what they'll tell you under oath. But we've got some documents that will show you that there was never any request made by the city of Boynton Beach to do any kind of repair on any kind of wiring equipment. None. During that year. More importantly, you'll hear Sergeant Ramsey testify that if there truly was some issue with recording devices, that they could easily borrow the recording devices from another police department. Easily done. And it's common practice. But here's the kicker. It gets bigger than that. The evidence in this case will show that the Boynton Beach police officers will flat out lie to you and tell you under oath, in this case, that Mohammed Shahade was not wired in that Chili's restaurant, in that important encounter before he escorts Dippolito over to meet Whitty Jean. And guess what? Shahade is going to take an oath in this case, and he's going to tell you, I walked out of the Chili's restaurant and I overheard the Boynton Beach police officers laughing and making comments about what Dalia Dippolito ordered for dinner from Mike Dippolito. So they knew. They knew exactly what was being, they had the recording. And they're going to lie to you and tell you that he wasn't wired. That is proof that the police department intentionally destroyed critical evidence in this case that not only we are entitled to, so that we can confirm exactly what was discussed in that meeting between Shahade and Dippolito. Not only is that evidence beneficial to us, but for you. Because a couple of these witnesses will tell you the importance of keeping all this evidence is to make sure there's no doubt in anybody's mind about what happened in case we end up in court. Sergeant Ramsey will tell you that. Marina will tell you that. But you and I won't have that critical information in this case. A couple other key points. Mr. Williams mentioned to you evidence, he told you the evidence is going to show Dippolito gave $1,200 to Muhammad Shahade. Well, the evidence in this case is going to show that A, the Boynton Beach Police Department didn't even log into evidence the $1,200, and B, they have no fingerprint proof of any of Dalia Dippolito's fingers being on the $1,200. Yeah, that'll be the evidence in the case about the $1,200. Now let's talk about Woody Jean now. So remember, Shahade's the confidential informant. He's making all the phone calls to get Dalia Dippolito to go meet with Woody Jean, right? So Woody Jean now is the guy who says, hey, I'm gonna go kill Mike Dippolito for you. In one of the phone calls you'll hear, Mr. Williams will play it for you. Woody Jean says to Dalia Dippolito, you need to bring $3,000 when you meet me to get this done. You need Dalia Dippolito to bring the key to the house. You need to bring that with you. And I need your alarm code. That's what he said. Well, guess what? They can show you these tapes till the cows come home. But one thing you will find that'll be uncontroverted in this case, three things. Dalia Dippolito never brought a key to her house to meet Woody Jean. And Woody Jean, he's their guy. He will tell you, if you don't bring a key to get into the house, that shows no intent to kill. Second thing, the $3,000. Dalia Dippolito doesn't bring any money to give to Woody Jean. Zero. Woody Jean, Mr. Williams' guy, is going to tell you that if she doesn't give the $3,000 over to him, there's no intent to kill. Those are going to be words out of his, Woody Jean's, mouth. Woody Jean asks Dalia Dippolito for the alarm code. She doesn't give that information to Woody Jean. And Woody Jean, we're going to go through it when you see him in here. He's a nice young man, but he was brought right into the middle of this. And he will tell you that he himself had twice he says it, he had a really short window to get this done. He was so desperate to get Dalia Dippolito on tape saying things that they needed for the Cops TV show that he actually offers at one point to do it for free I'm going to go kill Mike Dippolito, and I'm not going to charge you a penny. I'll go collect it later on. I'll go knock him off for you. And at the beginning of that encounter between Whitty Jean and Dalia Dippolito, you're going to hear her say that she's surprised that he's calling her. She's, quote, caught off guard. And there's one point early on in the encounter where Whitty Jean clearly says, hey, you want your husband killed, don't you? And her words, I'll read you her exact words when I cross-examine Whitty Jean. But Ms. Dippolito's response, the evidence will show, is not consistent with a woman who wanted her husband killed. And what Tim Williams, remember the retired lieutenant, will tell you is at that point in time, during that encounter between Whitty Jean and Dalia Dippolito, where she is showing reluctance to have her husband killed, that it should have ended at that point. That it's inappropriate for an undercover officer to continue to escalate the situation, to try to elicit comments by Ms. Dippolito that will help get her arrested, and more importantly, help with the Cops TV show. But let's talk about the Cops TV show again. Whitty Jean will tell you, after he left August 3rd, after this encounter that Mr. Williams will show you, there was no deal in place. There was no deal in place. That's important in this case because it shows lack of intent on her part. So what happens? Now we're on August 4th. Let's move to August 4th. Remember August 3rd, the encounter, Whitty Jean and Dalia Dippolito. Now we're at August 4th. What does Whitty Jean do? He wakes up in the morning. He's like, oh, wow, okay. I don't have a deal done yet with her. I got to get on the phone. So where's my phone? So what he does is he picks the phone up again. This is their guy, Whitty Jean. He's picking up the phone. Dalia Dippolito is not calling Whitty Jean. Dalia Dippolito didn't get in the car with Whitty Jean and say, I want 2 bullets to my husband's head. Mr. Williams told you that twice. Very dramatic. But that's not the evidence in this case. She never said that. She didn't get in the truck with Whitty Jean and say, put 2 bullets to my husband's head. She had reported to Mohammed Shahade domestic abuse. She was a vulnerable woman, and that will be proven in this case. And the police department preyed upon that. They exploited this situation. So Whitty Jean is calling Dalia Dippolito again. Mr. Williams will play it for you. There's no evidence of Dalia Dippolito calling him on August 4th. He's like, come on, meet me. Or let's get this done. Let's get this done the next day. Let's do it the next day. I got no money from you and no proof of the $1,200, but I got no gun, by the way. That's another key fact I forgot to mention in this case. Whitty Jean will tell you, he will tell you that during that August 3rd encounter with Dalia Dippolito in that car, he tells her, I don't have a gun. So think about it. The alleged hitman doesn't have a gun, right? Doesn't have any money given by Dalia Dippolito, doesn't have a key, doesn't have the alarm code, and she's intending to kill her husband? Well, that's why Whitty Jean had to get on the phone again on August 4th. Realized he had a problem. So the evidence is going to show that the police department, Boynton Beach Police Department, continued to manufacture what otherwise would not have been there. What the evidence is going to show in this case is Dalia Dippolito might have a loud bark, but no bite. And the police department knew it. Why do you think they knew it? Well, here's another key piece of evidence for you. Whitty Jean never arrested Dalia Dippolito, did he? Remember that August 3rd encounter? Mr. Williams will play several times for you. Dalia Dippolito said she's 5,000% sure she wants her husband killed, right? She's so sure, no key, no money, no alarm, no gun. She's so sure, And this police department's so positive that this woman wants her husband killed that they don't arrest her. They don't arrest her on August 3rd. And in fact, there's evidence in this case that they never even did any surveillance on her. Think about it. The evidence is going to show that this police department, Boynton Beach Police Department, they knew in their minds that this woman didn't intend to kill her husband because they would have placed surveillance immediately on her. If this woman's going to kill her husband, are you going to let her float around for 48 hours? Oh, another important point. The Boynton Beach Police Department never contacted Mike Dippolito. Never contacted the guy that they thought was going to be murdered until late in the day on August 5th with the Cops TV show cameras. The cameras right there. They showed up at Mike's condominium. How about that? That's the first time that the Boynton Beach Police Department ever notified Mike Dippolito of anything. If this woman's going to kill her husband, you better get protection from Mike Dippolito from August 3rd to August 5th. 48 hours. Zero. In fact, the first communication between Boynton Beach Police Department and Mike Dippolito was they were standing next to the Cops TV show cameras as they filmed Mike Dippolito's reaction. That's the first time. So, August 4th, Witty Jean is telling Dalia Dippolito, we're going to get it done on the 5th. I'm going to do it. In fact, what they were doing is they were coordinating their schedule with the Cops TV show folks. You're going to hear Stephanie Slater come in here, and she'll tell you. She will tell you, September 2nd, 2008, November 18th, 2008, another pitch. She followed up pitching the Cops TV show. January 8th, 2009, she follows up again with the Cops TV show, trying to get the Boynton Beach Police Department on the Cops TV show. May 19th, 2009, she's still contacting the Cops TV show. And then, Cops TV show says, you know what? We're going to come to your police department. Well, guess what? The evidence is going to show in this case that the Cops TV show was initially supposed to start filming on August 4th, ironically, 2009. August 4th. Remember, August 3rd was the Witty Jean meeting with Dalia Dippolito. The next day, Cops TV show is supposed to be filming. And guess what Stephanie Slater will tell you? They were supposed to be following the Boynton Beach Police Department detectives on patrol. That was supposed to be the show. But guess what happened? Sergeant Sheridan and Stephanie Slater had a meeting with the Cops TV show folks on August 4th. And they told the Cops TV show folks, hey, we got a good one. The evidence will show. We got a good one. This isn't jaywalking. This isn't a DUI. We got a murder for hire here. So you know what they did? They convinced the Cops TV show folks to switch the whole agenda. So they switched it from following patrol to setting up a fake crime scene on August 5th. Yeah. So on August 5th, you'll hear testimony. The Cops TV show folks, many of the Boynton Beach Police Department officers, including Stephanie Slater, they set up what's called a staged crime scene, where they pretend. This is the extreme they went to. They pretend that Mike's killed. to get a reaction out of Dalia Dippolito. This is the woman they think's gonna kill him. She's still running free. To get her on tape so that they can have that tape of her and then run that over to post that on YouTube as well during a pending criminal investigation. They did that. Spent all these resources to set up this fake crime scene. Called Dalia, oh, your husband's been killed. What do you think? Boom. Hey, let's get this woman on camera. Let's get her on camera, see how she responds. Tim Williams will tell you, their own former Sergeant Frank Ramsey will tell you, flat out, inappropriate. Terrible police practices. Compromises the integrity of investigations. That's what we're learning in the case. But that's not the end of the story. Still not the end of the story. Mr. Williams is going to play you some other tapes in this case at the police station. And by the way, at that point in time where they do this staged crime scene on August 5th, 2009, Ms. Dippolito is still not even arrested. She's not even arrested. Sound like a woman that's intended to kill her husband? Well, they take her over to the police station. Now we're fast forwarding over to the police station, right? We're on August 5th. This big dramatic stage crime scene to get her reaction, to post on YouTube for the whole world to see, to get on Cops TV show. And now we're at the police station. And there's going to be evidence in this case about, Witty Jean will tell you. Remember Witty Jean again. I know there's a lot of characters. That's why I keep reminding you. I apologize. I'm trying to help you keep track. Witty Jean again is the undercover hit guy who works for Boynton Beach PD. He'll tell you. You know what happens at the police station? They've got cops filming. They put Witty Jean in handcuffs. Their own guy. They put him in handcuffs and they parade him out in front of, if you're Dalia Dippolito, I'm Miss Dippolito, to get her reaction. Their own guy, handcuff him. That's the extreme that this police department, a police department that the evidence will show, has a high duty of public trust. We expect that of police departments. And they're parading Witty Jean in front of her in handcuffs to get a reaction. Oh, and then it gets better. Then for the TV show, they parade in Mike Dippolito. They bring in Mike Dippolito, guy that thought he was going to be killed. He's walking in there, hey. Why? Cameras filming. Cameras filming to get a reaction out of Miss Dippolito. That's not the end of the story. We then have a situation where Sergeant Sheridan, by the way, he's the lead guy. This is the top dog at Boynton Beach PD. He tries to trick Dalia Dippolito. Takes a piece of paper. She's in an interrogation room at this point. Cameras filming. Piece of paper there. Sergeant Sheridan says, hey, sign it. She's like, what is it? Oh, sign that and we'll help make sure you get a lawyer. She signs it, right? Sheridan takes it back to the top guy at the Cops TV show. He looks at it. It was a waiver. He lied. Their top guy. Lied to Dalia Dippolito. Said, hey, I got a document to sign for you. Help you get a lawyer. It was a waiver for her saying, I give you permission to show all of this dramatic stuff on Cops TV show. She had no idea that it was a waiver. Flat out lied to her. The lead sergeant on this case. the end of the case, we're going to be asking you, you'll hear from me again one last time in closing argument. At the end of the case, we're going to be asking you to find Ms. Dippolito not guilty. Because we believe that the evidence will show in this case that this was fiction created by a police department to manufacture a great episode for a Cops TV show. And that does not amount to a felony. I thank you very much for your time this morning, and I look forward to speaking to you again at the end of this case. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Claypool. Members of the jury, we'll take a short break before we start the evidence, then we'll go to probably the lunch hour and break for lunch. But what we'll do is we'll let you stretch a little bit, go into the jury room, use the restroom. We'll take about a 5-minute break, and then we'll get started with the evidence.